by the name of Fighting Joe Hooker. And so here we go, early May, Battle of Chancellorsville. What happens is that Jackson and Hill are riding their staff together after that push early that morning there with Jackson pushing those Yankees away. But now he wants to follow up with a ninth attack. So Jackson and Hill are riding. Then their staffs are coming. And then there's a quick burst of artillery. It seems they're going through the area protected by the 18th North Carolina, part of Hill's Light Division. But they see horses. They think it's using cavalry. So they fire. Men, horses, explosions going on. Jackson gets hit. He goes down. Hill jumps off his horse. He goes down. Stop firing, you're firing into your own men. Even his mic comes off because of all the confusion that's going on. And so Hill rushes over to an aide to fix his microphone over here. And so he's asking his aide to clip on the microphone. He fixes his microphone. And so men and horses, all the confusion is going on. And so, no, Jackson is still lying on the ground. Are you still there? He's still there. Oh, good. Okay. He didn't take him away yet. All right. Jackson is on the ground. So Hill goes up to Jackson, takes off his blood-soaked gauntlets, unbuckles Jackson's belt, and he actually cradles Jackson's head. And finally, the stretcher bearers are about to take Jackson away. And Hill tells Jackson, "General, I will keep your wounding from the knowledge of the troops. Thank you." That is the last communication between Hill and Jackson. So Jackson will be taken away to be tended after being shot in the hand, right hand, and the left arm. But now, Hill is ready. He is ready to command Jackson's corps and win a great victory for Robert E. Lee. But then there's a quick burst of artillery and gets him in the back of the legs. Again, A.P. Hill misses out on his chance for glory. So, Jeff Stewart saves the day and wins a great victory at Chancellorsville for Robert E. Lee. So another victory for the Confederate States of America's Army of Northern Virginia. But then, ladies and gentlemen, days later, on May 10th, Jackson is dying. It is May 10th. Pneumonia has set in. And so, it is 3:15 in the afternoon of May 10th, a Sunday. Jackson always wanted to die on the Sabbath. 3:15. His men and his wife are around him. And Jackson would look up into the heavens. And his mind would wander back to the field. And everyone in the room would hear him say, "Order! A.P. Hill to prepare for action! Let us cross over the river and rest under the shade of the trees." Jackson is no more. Robert E. Lee must replace Stonewall Jackson. But how can he? Well, Lee decides to reorganize the Army of Northern Virginia into a three-corps army. He will have Lieutenant General Longstreet, commander of the First Corps. He will have newly promoted Lieutenant General Richard Ewell, commander of the Second Corps. And he will promote A.P. Hill to Lieutenant General, commander of the Third Corps. And so with an army of 75,000 men, Robert E. Lee and the Army of Northern Virginia, they want to put this war to an end. So they will march through Maryland. They will march into Pennsylvania. And so on those 3 days in July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, the Battle of Gettysburg will rage on. It could decide the fate of the nation, the United States of America, the Confederate States of America. And what is A.P. Hill those 3 days? A.P. Hill is sick. It is not the best of times, the best of days for A.P. Hill or the Army of Northern Virginia. Well, after those 3 days, the Army must go back to Virginia. But General Lee, who will he go to bring the Army back? He will not go to Longstreet. He will not go to Ewell. He will go to A.P. Hill. A.P. Hill saved the Army at Sharpsburg, and he hopes that A.P. Hill will repeat by bringing the Army back to Virginia. And he did. So, the next major encounter will occur in 1864 when U.S. Grant will command the entire Union forces. So A.P. Hill and the Army in Northern Virginia will fight in 1864 at the Wilderness, Spotsylvania, Cold Harbor. But then there will be a siege around Petersburg and Richmond. the Army of Northern Virginia would get weaker and weaker and weaker. Robert E. Lee himself said if it ever comes to a siege, it'd just be a matter of time, while the Army of the Potomac would get stronger and stronger and stronger. And then finally, what would happen? You would get the springtime of 1865, and A.P. Hill is not feeling well. He would take a leave of absence, but then he would come back to be with Lee in the Army on April the 1st. April the 1st, 1865, he would be on a horse in extreme pain, just riding along the lines to check out all the embankments there, all his defenses. But then, when he tries to sleep, he will get up early, April 2nd, and his wife is with him, who is 7 months pregnant. He will have his 2 little girls with him in that same house. And then Lee would summon A.P. Hill. A.P. Hill will get up early that morning. Instead of putting on his red battle shirt, his hunting shirt, he would put on a white linen shirt and his shell jacket and his cape. And he would go over to Lee's headquarters. And Longstreet would be there also. But then, after going over the situation, a courier comes in, says there was a break in the line, A.P. Hill's line. So A.P. Hill gets on his horse and takes with him Chief of Couriers Sergeant Tucker and Trooper Jenkins. And as he is about to ride away, Robert E. Lee will say, "General, take care of yourself." And so Hill and the 2 couriers will be riding on the voided plank road early that morning of April 2nd, and they will see 2 Yankees on the road. Hill will have his pistol out and call out for them to surrender, and they will. And those 2 Yankees will be sent back to be interrogated by Robert E. Lee with Trooper Jenkins. But then Hill and Tucker would keep on riding and riding to get to that break area so Hill could rally the troops. But then they would encounter a company of Yankees in the road, too many for him to handle. So Hill would see a wooded area. So Hill and Tucker would ride off to this wooded area, and for some apparent reason, Hill would go to Tucker, "If anything should happen to me, you must report it to General Lee." And so right then and there, getting closer to the woods, 2 Yankees are there from the 138th Pennsylvania, Corporal John Mark and Private Dan Wolford. They would see these 2 Confederates on horseback getting closer and closer and closer. And for some reason, Hill would say, "If anything should happen to me, you must report it to General Lee." So as soon as they got within 10 yards of those Yankees, Hill called out for them to surrender, but those Yankees raised their rifles and fired. Both Corporal John Mark and Private Dan Wolford. Wolford's shot missed both Hill and Tucker, but that bullet fired by Mark would come towards A.P. Hill, sever his thumb, go through his chest, rip through his heart, and kill him instantly. A.P. Hill was dead before he even hit the ground. So Tucker, remembering A.P. Hill's last order, "If anything should happen to me, you must report it to General Lee." So Tucker would grab Hill's horse and ride it, and he would meet Robert E. Lee. And so he would tell the death of A.P. Hill to General Lee. And Lee, in a choking voice and with tears in his eyes, he would say, "He is now at rest, and we who are left are the ones to suffer." 1 week later, Robert E. Lee could not go on with A.P. Hill. So on April the 9th, 1865, at Appomattox Courthouse, Robert E. Lee would surrender the Army of Northern Virginia. But, ladies and gentlemen, that is not the end of A.P. Hill. 5 years later, on October the 12th, 1870, in Lexington, Virginia, Robert E. Lee is dying from a stroke. That morning, 9:30 on October the 12th, 1870, his family would gather around him. And Lee's mind would go to the battlefield from years earlier. And his very last words would be, "Strike the tent." But just prior to that, everyone in the room heard him say, "Tell A.P. Hill he must come up." Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Martin Sheen, who played Robert E. Lee, Tom Berenger, who played James Longstreet. There's a scene where they're on horses and they're talking about the old days when they were in the army during the Mexican War, and we're shooting this actually on the battlefield. And this particular scene takes place on the battlefield, and on the battlefield there's a particular house there. It's a ranger house that has a phone, just to be in touch with what's going on in the battlefield. And of course, the crew members are there, the cameramen, the light, sound, and of course, we got reenactors there. So we just have to do this scene, a quick 10-second scene, and it's late in the day, and we got to get it done right away. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Martin Sheen, who have not been on a horse in 11 years, and Tom Berenger, who is an excellent horseman. Here they are, riding side by side, 10 seconds. So I'll count from 5 to 10, and at that time, they both have to stop. And that's the end of the scene. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Berenger stops. Martin Sheen, 11, 12, 13. He couldn't stop the horse. So, Ron Maxwell said, it's getting late, we have to do it now. We're burning daylight. So we all go back to the original spot. And so here we go again, 10 seconds. They both have to stop on the count of 10, all right? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Berenger stop. 11, 12, 13. Martin couldn't stop the horse again. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen, because what happened was that Ron Maxwell says, you see that? This is the last shot. Martin Sheen says, I will stop the horse. I promise you. I promise you, I will do it. All right. This is it, ladies and gentlemen. We're on the battlefield. There's a house there, the phone there, the crew there, reenactors. Everybody's here. The last shot. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Berenger stops. 10. Martin Sheen stops. The phone rings. Ring. 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 A reenactor picks up the phone. Uh-huh. 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 It's Jeb Stewart. He says he's going to be a little late. One more quick story, all right? How I got the role of A.P. Hill. Ron Maxwell and I had known each other for a long time, the director-screenwriter. We would take trips to Gettysburg, and I knew all the major characters would be by the big stars and everything. So we were like a few months prior to filming, and so what happened was that we're in Gettysburg, and we decided, you know, we're going to be going home back to New York at the end of the day. So one quick trip around the battlefield, and I felt, well, this is it, ladies and gentlemen. This is what I have to do. Fortune favors the bold. So he leaves his hotel room, I leave my hotel room. He's waiting for me to get in the car. I get in the car, and lo and behold, I'm wearing a red shirt. He looks at me. He sees the red shirt. I said, hi, Ron, how you doing this morning? So we start driving around the battlefield, and it's getting late in the day. So I said to myself, this is it, here we go. Hey, Ron, I'm kind of hungry. I know where there's an A&P. He looks at me. So we keep on riding, and I knew this is gotta be it. This is it. Hey, Ron, you know that A&P is just over the next hill. That's it. So he started the AP Hill Fund. $10 here, $20 here, $30 there. It got to be a point where I was helping to finance this movie. So towards the end of the day, we're about to leave Gettysburg, and it starts raining, and so he decides to drive down Steinway Avenue, where all the souvenir shops are. So he pulls by the side of one of the shops. He says, Pat, you wait here. He said, Ron, what's the matter? It's raining. Pat, you just wait here. He gets out. 2 minutes later, he comes back in. He gives me a bag. He says, Pat, it's yours. Open the bag. So I open the bag. And there's a sweatshirt there with the portrait of A.P. Hill. That's how I knew I had the role. A.P. Hill.
Ladies and gentlemen, A.P. Hill.